Be my lucky year because I keep finding these beautiful unicorn cars to add to my collection. So for those who don't already know, this is a Yokomo 1993 World Championship Special. It is an authentic WCS, not a replica, and it is brand new. I don't see a single scratch anywhere on this car. It looks to be a completely fresh build. Okay, so, alright, it doesn't have the original box and manual, but otherwise, everything on it is in perfect condition, which is really cool. Now, those who are, more in tune with vintage stuff probably saw this on eBay for auction recently, and yes, I did win that auction, but I did not end up paying the price that the winning auction was for. So a bit of a backstory there. When I won the auction, the owner had contacted me to let me know that he wasn't 100% sure that the car was authentic. And so, we did a bit of homework ourselves to try to understand whether it's authentic, because one person had some questions about the arms and the towers and the chassis and the carbon weave on the chassis and all that stuff. So we had each independently confirmed that in fact this car is authentic. So my guess is that owner, may not have been the original owner, but I know a guy who, at least one person who I talked to in depth, who owns a WCS and even knows Masami, who confirmed with me that this is in fact authentic. So then the owner and I renegotiated the price. He was willing to lower the price a bit. So he could at least get what he was looking for out of it, and it was also a fair price for me that I felt was a fair price. And I decided to get this one instead of waiting for, let's say, a beautifully done Masami build. I mean, those are really wonderful cars, but this is more like a clean slate. So if I want to, I can, do my own sort of custom aesthetic to this for like the body and the wheels and so forth. So maybe one day in the future I'll get a Masami built or a Masami themed WCS as well, but that'll be sometime in the future. These are all very expensive cars. But anyway, this is kind of, for a while I wasn't sure if I wanted to get a WCS, to be perfectly honest with you, because it's essentially a 94 YZ10 front end in terms of the parts and the geometry. There are a few differences, and in the rear it's like a Works YZ10 rear with a few swizzles. So as far as what the car represents, it's like, well, I already have Works YZ10s, I already have 94 and 95 YZ10s. Why would I want to spend so much money on something that's just a combination of the two? But then this came up and it was in such beautiful condition, I couldn't help but to think, well, this would be like the final addition to my Yokomo collection that would really matter to me. So, it's a very rare opportunity to have a chance to bid on one of these, and I have the resources to win an auction on these, so I figured, go for it. Thankfully, I won. So, that being said, let's dig a little bit more into this and what makes it specifically a 93 WCS. Okay, so starting with the front, the bumper, the arms, the caster blocks, all that stuff, these are the exact same parts that you would see on a 94 YZ10. The shock tower looks identical to a 94 YZ10, but the only real difference is that the WCS tower is thinner. I believe this is maybe 2 or 3 millimeters. The 94 is quite a bit thicker than that. So that's one way to tell if what you have is an authentic WCS or a replica. The other thing is the weave of the carbon fiber. So there are only two ways you can get a WCS chassis. You can either have an original chassis or you can get one from Fiberlight. And Fiberlight does make an exact geometric replica, but the weave of their carbon fiber is a little bit different and it has a different color to it. So the original Yokomo weaves have a slight yellowish hue to them. And so, being that this has that color, this is an original Yokomo chassis. The steering assembly is, interestingly, on the 93 WCS, they have the drag link and the top brace that you would see on the 95 model, but was not included on the 94 model if you were to buy a 94 new in box. So it's kind of peculiar that this had preceded the 94 YZ10 that would be released to customers, but it wasn't until after the 95 Worlds, I guess, or maybe, I don't know. Certainly the 95 had it. I don't know if this was added as an option part from the 94 later, I'm not sure, but certainly was not included with the 94 kit. Upper deck, as you can see, is, I believe, G10 fiberglass, not carbon fiber, right? Similar to the 94 model, which had a G10 upper deck as well. The positioning of the chassis standoffs, these are perfectly next to each other, the left and right standoffs. You'll note that on the 94, if I remember correctly, it has one standoff, I think on a hole in the center, and the 95 has two sort of offset standoffs on either side. So there are some differences there. This motor mount is an aftermarket motor mount. This is a ZD304 motor mount. So that's a Yokomo option part. An original motor mount would just be your standard magnesium motor mount that you'd see on everything from the 870 all the way up through, a 97 YZ10. So although this doesn't come with the original motor mount, I don't care, because this is a better option part for one. That's also, a rare part. And I have tons of magnesium motor mounts already, so it doesn't matter to me. I'll take this one over a magnesium mount any day. Now the ZD304S motor mount is a variation of this, which has holes on the top piece there, as well as part of the motor mount itself to house roller bearings to help hold the belts down on the pulleys. And these belts, as you probably already know, these are 2mm pitch belts. These are brand new in perfect condition. Front and rear diff pulleys are 2mm. This whole TCS unit is set up for 2mm pulleys, front and rear. So that means that slipper hub with the gear on it, with the pulley on it, that's 2mm pitch. Very, very hard to find those. Going to the rear, as you can see here, you have the rear bulkhead cap that you would have on the older 870C and Works models. The rear bulkhead itself appears to be a magnesium unit and not an aluminum unit, which is interesting because on the 870 you had magnesium motor mounts, you had magnesium bulkheads, you had magnesium steering blocks and rear hub carriers. And then they moved away from magnesium toward aluminum bulkheads for the Works models. And then for the 93 WCS, they went back to magnesium. I believe the reason for that could have been to save weight. Magnesium is a lot lighter than aluminum. And considering how this bulkhead is also modified so that you're shaving off the arm mount portions of the bulkhead so that you can seat the inner hinge pin mounts that are, let's say, they're not exactly 94 YZ10 inner hinge pin mounts, but they're very close to that in their shape. Basically, these nylon parts are now your inner hinge pin mounts, and those are going to be stronger than the old way with the magnesium bulkheads, which is to have a magnesium mount attached to the bulkhead. And oftentimes, that could be where the bulkhead breaks, if not the shock tower mount. So, in some sense, this is a way to make the rear assembly more reliable. And of course, this car came out before the 94, so they didn't have all the 94 parts ready yet for, the 94 style rear gearbox and arm mounts and everything. So this is what makes it special. What also makes it a bit special is the fact that the inner Camber link ball studs on the rear mount vertically. And so there's a plate between the bulkhead cap and the bulkhead that has one hole on either side where you mount the ball stud vertically. And so you can put spacers under this to lower or raise the roll center for the rear. So they must have been very confident about the turnbuckle length, because that determines your camber gain, that they only felt like they needed to change the roll center for the Worlds. So not a particularly tunable car, but you could say that about a lot of the YZ10s. But again, that's a unique part to the 93 WCS. On the 91 YZ10 that Cliff Lett used at the 91 Worlds, they had one of these on the front bulkhead as well. Maybe a slightly different shape, but it's the same idea with a vertically mounted ball stud. And you'll notice on the 91 Works that would be sold in boxes, didn't have that part. It had a more conventional mounting of the inner ball stud link to the front tower. Okay, so that's kind of cool. All lightweight components here, like these ball ends here that go in these ball cups, those are all aluminum, titanium turnbuckles. The rear shock tower is also, I think, G10 fiberglass. Totally different shape from the 94 tower, although the actual hole placements for the top of the tower, I do believe those are very similar to the 94, but the middle section here with these two center holes, that's what makes it a 93 tower. Comes with associated shocks front and rear with green rear springs and silver or gray, I guess, front springs. Kind of interesting that they went away from the Yokomo shocks, the black body Yokomo shocks for this car, because those shocks are also pretty good. But I would suppose that people who drove Yokomos at the time were usually team associated team drivers, and so it would just be easier perhaps for them to use associated shocks on both their RC10 and their YZ10, because then they just need like one set of pistons and one set of shock shafts and seals and so forth to do it all and to tune everything. So that would make sense. And the original associated shocks are also very good if you build them right. So that's kind of it. I mean, people who know about this car know a lot about it. So I don't need to do a whole seriously in-depth video, but I just want to say that I'm happy that I finally have one, and it happens to be in brand new, extremely good condition. This did come with a green wing. I'm thinking I have a yellow wing from JC Racing that I might put on here because I like yellow wings, but that's a reproduction wing, so I'm not sure if I want to keep this with like original parts. So for example, this has original white wheels here. I forget exactly what this pattern is called. I have some original black colored versions of these wheels, but they're a little scratched up. I have also black ones from JC Racing that I was thinking of putting on here because they're new and clean, and I would put like some stickers on there, like those wheel disc stickers. I'd like to try that as well. So I'm still sort of going over in my head what I want to do about the aesthetic for the car, for the body, the wheels, the wing. So we'll see. Time will tell. It does also come with the original body and under tray, which have been cut. The protective film has been peeled off, however, so if I want to paint this, I have to do it the old-fashioned way and, put masking over the whole thing on the front. I may just preserve this body and paint a separate body. That would make a bit more sense. Same thing for the under tray. This is already, it's cut and the protective film is peeled off. This body also may be hard to see in camera, but there is a little bit of yellowing of the body. So, even if I did paint it, it's not a perfectly clear body. So I may, put this aside, in a dark cabinet somewhere just to preserve it. So yeah, anyway, those are minor details. So I hope you found this kind of interesting, and this, I suppose, is probably my last unicorn car of the year, given that I have this in the A&L prototype cars that I'm working on, and some Kyosho ZXS and ZXS Evolutions. Really hard to top that. The only thing I can think of collecting beyond this might be like the 10th Technology Predator. I'm not a huge fan of those, but they could be kind of interesting to have one day. Beyond that, I have no idea. So, yeah, anyway, I'm kind of rambling at this point. I just wanted to show you guys where this car actually went, that I have it. Obviously, I'm going to take very good care of this. And again, I want to reiterate, the auction price that you see that this sold for on eBay is not what it actually sold for. It sold for less. It's still very expensive, but it sold for less. All right, so that's it for now. Thanks for watching.